ladies and gentlemen, it's time to move ahead for our next session. We all know that India is undoubtedly the largest provider of drugs globally. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our next session becomes very interesting because we are going to talk about the future of pharma. And for that, I would like to introduce the speakers of our next session. Mr. Anaswamy Vedish, former MD GSK and JJ. Mr. Sudarshan Jain, Secretary General, IPA. Mr. KG Anand Krishnan, Director General, Organization of Pharmaceutical Producers of India. Ladies and gentlemen, this session will be moderated by Mr. Keval Handa, Promoter Director, Salus Summer Life Care Private Limited. Now, let me just give you a quick brief about Mr. Handa. Mr. Keval Handa was the Managing Director of Beat Limited and with Pfizer India, and in 20 years that he was with the company, Keval Handa has been entrusted with positions of increasing responsibility. Under his leadership, the Pfizer India became one of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies in India. Mr. Handa has diverse experience in finance, commercial, strategy, and business development, corporate affairs, etc., and is also recognized as an industry expert on issues concerning the pharmaceutical sector. Mr. Keval is the past president of All India Management Association, a committee member of the Confederation of Indian Industry, a past member of the managing committee of the Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the chairman of the Pharmaceutical Committee, Associate. Mr. Keval is presently Promoter Director of Salus Life Care Private Limited and Strategic Advisor to various companies. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Mr. Keval for you. Sir, over to you.
Very good afternoon, Zinat, and thanks for those lavish introduction. It's a great panel today, and I'm really feeling very humbled in front of my friends. There is a background sound coming. Can you, Zinat, correct that? So I'm very feeling humbled in front of Sudarshan, Vaidesh, and Anand Krishnan on this panel today. Let me briefly talk about them. To take Sudarshan is a strong healthcare background, is now the Secretary General of the IPA and has about 40 years of experience working in companies like Lupin, Johnson, Piramal, Abbott, and was formerly the Managing Director of Abbott Healthcare Solutions. So Sudarshan, thank you for accepting the invitation and being part of this panel. And I also have Anaswamy Vaidesh, who is the CEO of North Star LLP, Management Consultant and Senior Advisor, PAG Holdings, Hong Kong. Vaidesh was previously the MD and VP of South Asia GSK, and he has about 35 years of experience in healthcare and worked in various companies like J&J and GSK. He created various models and markets and turned around declining businesses and was awarded as the most promising Asian Leader of the Year 2016. So thank you, Vaidesh, for accepting this invitation, being part of this IMC panel. And I have then Mr. Anand Krishnan, who represents the OPPI, is the Director General of OPPI. OPPI represents the research-based companies in India. Anand has a broad experience in various fields, and it's always been a pleasure to work with Anand. He's been prior to OPPI, he was the former Vice Chairman and Managing Director, South Asia Region, MSD. Previously, he worked with Pfizer, Pharma, and Novartis. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a super panel. I want to start with Vaidesh. Vaidesh, how do you see pharmaceutical business in the global scenario, and where does India stand?
So first and foremost, Keval, I think, as you rightly mentioned, the doyens are here, Sudarshan and Anand Krishnan, and you know, all you guys put together must be 150 years, something like that, 120 years. Now, all of them are still young, but that's a separate issue. But the first and foremost, I think we need to take a pride in saying India's pharmaceutical industry has played a very big role in our country as well as for the world. As a pharmacy of the world that we keep saying, but I think truly, I think we are doing a great job. The point that you talked about is the future of pharmaceutical industry for the world and for the India. See, you first and foremost, you need to remember countries like India, part of the emerging country, because we still have a lot of healthcare issues to resolve, and our mortality and morbidity rate are not comparable to what you see in developed world. If you look at Japan, the average longevity is they're talking about 80 plus. Singapore is 80 plus, right? And there the healthcare challenges are very different. At the end of the day, all the pharmaceutical industry's aim is to improve longevity and reduce morbidity. Now, as far as countries like India is concerned, that we've done a great job in 1940s when we gained independence. Average longevity was 45 years, and today we are at about 68 years, if I'm not mistaken. So we have some more distance to go. So we have two challenges for the pharmaceutical industry. One, we have to help countries like India to improve their longevity, go beyond 60 as an average. So that means still there are a lot of disease burden that needs to get managed in India for us to live the life cycle as. So Western world would be looking at some of the disease state, the investment that are happening is in the area of primarily in the area of neurosciences, like Alzheimer's, and because people live longer, the neuroscience becomes important. Other one is in the area of oncology.
How that research, Vaidesh, is relevant to the domestic Indian population?
Yeah. So the point I'm trying to say is that in India, still we have a good distance to go. There are a lot of patent cliff products, molecules that are available that will help us to tide over. So frankly, the research in India, you don't need to worry about coming up with a new drug discovery. But I see probably we can cover it later in your question, is that where India can participate in the global pharmaceutical industry. I have a good view on it as to how India pharmaceutical industry can participate, right? So, so we will talk about that later, but I'm saying from an Indian patient was a global patients. So we have a different challenge, which is currently being handled. Our drug industry is doing a fantastic job of coming up with the cost-effective drugs and vaccines to make sure that we don't die too early. And whereas for the Western world, they require intermediaries and they have APIs and all the stuff that's required for oncology and all the stuff. One area which India should be focusing on is in the area of biologics. And I'm going to stop here. I don't want to spend more time on it. We will have a more discussion on this one.
Thank you, Vaidesh. Now I'm going to Sudarshan. Sudarshan, this is a very hot topic, the vaccines, correct? You know, we are very proud of the two Indian companies. But when we were looking at the emergency use of this vaccines, and we had, you know, the first company to apply for it was Pfizer. And we asked them to do, you know, the clinical studies and create data for the Indian population. Now, in such an emergency and in such a dire need of vaccine in India, do you think we could have, at that point of time, you know, condoned this and allowed the multinational companies to participate?
Thank you very much, Keval. And once again, I will say it is a privilege to be part of this distinguished panel. Keval, you being there, you have been our senior. Vaidesh is here and KG is here. And you asked me a very sensitive question, and being a Secretary General of IPA, still I would like to answer that question. We are going through the biggest humanitarian challenge, and it has been such a great learning. KG is here. Every day is a new day. And whether the government, all of us are trying to learn, where did we hear the concept of emergency use authorization and vaccine developing in 12 months' time. It is impossible. I couldn't imagine when September, October, November, we were talking about it. But it shows the greatest collaboration of science in the world. And what we need to do, science and humanity need to come together and get the equitable distribution of vaccine, because no one is safe till everyone is safe. And that is the biggest question which is there before us. So what we were trying to do early on is use our own capacity, which is Bharat Biotech and Aadhar, Poonawalla, that is Serum Institute. But we said that may not be enough. And we are learning every day. So what the government has done in last 15 days, I will say it is just outstanding. They announced yesterday that everyone who is over 18 can be given vaccination. They made the whole process much more flexible instead of only government doing it. So yes, 50% is for government over 45, but KG and we have been talking about it. OPPA has made the representation, IPA and INMA has made the representation that everyone should be allowed. And thanks, and we welcome that step that over. But where is the money? Where is the vaccine?
Very heartening to hear that from IPA, and that you welcome this step. Now, my question too is, on the vaccine, my last question, then we move on to the other topics, is we are talking about, vaccinating on population below 19. We are actually looking at somewhere around 77 to 80 crore people to be vaccinated, single dose, and you double it, it's 160 crore vaccination. And probably, I don't think so, these Indian companies have that much of capacity to vaccinate so many people. At the most, they are looking at, 1,000 million or 150 million. That's also increasing their capacity by end of the year in doing so. Now, definitely, it's going to be only about 40 to 50% of the population probably will get vaccinated. And by the end of the year or so, or maybe later on. Do you think it's an ambitious plan to get everybody vaccinated?
It's a very, very ambitious plan, Keval. However, the welcome point is it will force us to examine all the options. So if you see yesterday when the announcement is made, yes, Serum Institute has been given 3,000 crores, Bharat Biotech has been given. Aurobindo is setting up the facility. Zydus is upgrading its facility. Panacea Biotech will get into the picture, and we will examine also the import. So when you set up a arduous goal, and you, me, Vadish, and KG are aware of it, because there is no option for us. Either we set it or try it or don't try it. So I will appreciate that at least the goal has been set up and the avenues will start emerging, and there are actions. In fact, today evening at 6 o'clock, Prime Minister has called a meeting of vaccine manufacturers. The good point of the story is all the avenues are explored with an objective, which is to get vaccinated. And there is a question of lives and livelihood. Livelihood can only work if we can make every environment safe. It is a great step. It is beginning, very arduous. No answers to everyone at this particular moment, but good attempt at this moment. I will stop here.
Very good. Thank you, Sudarshan. Lives and livelihood. And when we talk about lives and livelihood, I was in one of the public channel, and I was the first one to say, why are we stopping multinational companies from coming and offering their vaccines to us? Then somebody maybe was a representative of a communist party said no multinationals are allowed in India. I said, oh, very good. So what is Sputnik? It's not a multinational. So when you talk about lives and livelihood, Anand, multinational companies have been in India for a pretty long time. And I was a time during our period, they were dominating on the top 10 and in the domestic market, of course. And now we have only one or two companies who can really be called as top 10 companies. And if I look at the type of investments some of these companies have done in the last few years, except for GSK, which had Vaidesh is there, he can support me on that, where they invested on their plant in Nasik, state-of-the-art plant in Karnataka. Pfizer did some tie-up with ICMR on the microbiological things and also on. So, but where are the multinational companies? Why are they not investing in India? Is India not offering them enough opportunity?
At the outset, thanks, Keval, and thanks to IMC for giving this opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you so much, and also honored to be along with Sudarshan, yourself, and Vaidish. It's a very good question, Keval. As you are aware, many of the multinationals that are there in India, though we call them as multinationals, they have been here for close to 75, 80 years and so on. They are as much domestic, industry than just a multinational. They have been here, whether it is a GSK or a Abbott or a Sanofi, Pfizer. These are organizations that have been here for a very long time. And I think all these organizations have made a profound contribution towards health and healthcare in our country over several, decades. Today, when you look at it, you are right, because in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, since the patent law was very different, that gave a great opportunity for the domestic industry to flourish and have done a phenomenal job of, in fact, becoming pharmacy of the world. It's a very brilliant job done. And that's the time when you had this, an MNC domination getting, slightly on the other side. Now it is the domestic companies which have a major share, and the MNCs are having a smaller share. But then you have to look at it from a very different perspective, because today, if you look at the global pharma companies, the focus of their research and marketing is in areas like cancer, in neurological diseases, in metabolic disorders. These are all highly focused on the, what should I call it, as chronic disease areas. And there are very few who are really focusing on the acute space, relatively few. So if you were to look at the specialty or the super specialty areas, still majority of the global pharma companies continue to dominate globally as well as in India, because these are the organizations that get you the biologics, the targeted therapy, the gene therapy to address some of the most sophisticated, challenges that we are facing, whether it is cancer or diabetes or neurological disorders, or even trying to address the challenge of Alzheimer's. That is one part. The second part, Keval, is that you said that why are they not investing? I would like to slightly change that perception. In fact, many of the MNCs are continuing to invest in India, but the investment need not necessarily be in manufacturing alone. Okay, there are organizations that have invested in creating global hubs out of India, whether it is Novo Nordisk, whether it is Novartis, whether it is MSD or many other organizations. They have created quite, a strong footprint in India for supporting the global operations out of India. That's a huge investment that is coming.
Fantastic. That's where I was coming to next, and then we will have some widish view on that also. CRAMS has been one of the biggest area that really, which is much larger than if you ask me to put both the domestic and export market together. And, as we are looking at staring at an opportunity of $40 billion or so. Now, it's in this area, where it's in R&D, which in the biologicals, or in the medicinal plants, and so on and so forth. In this area, or in the chemistry we are talking about, are we really looking at MNC saying that India offers a tremendous skills and cost benefit that we should be putting our best foot forward in India? Maybe Vaidish can respond to this. Is it how MNCs look at this area as such as investment?
So, Keval, I think enough has been said on this subject. I think KG also mentioned. So you have to remember, COVID has taught a big lesson, the way in which healthcare is to be delivered, how the pharmaceutical industries have to develop. Look at tocilizumab, look at remdesivir, the way in which, because of the pandemic, look at the collaboration that has happened. Yeah. So look at Gilead talking to 10 companies to manufacture it in India to make sure that it's available in India, right? So this whole idea of how companies are going to do presence in the world has been completely demythed during this COVID time, right? So you have Oxford, AstraZeneca taking it, and SIS Serum Institute making it, right? And you look at the way in which nobody could even imagine these kind of things could happen in normal time. So the way in which I would recommend all of us to wear our hat, it's a new world. The way in which is going to manufacturing, R&D has to happen. It's going to be happening in a very, very different way. The way in which the mathematical biomathematics, the biggest strength of India, right? And it's so important in biological development of R&D. Now, a lot of stuff that's happening in this area in Bangalore, right? Now, as KG said, the multinational companies are looking at these kind of way. See, manufacturing is a physical activity, right? It's no longer a manufacturing. Now it's become robotics and AIs and coming. You require only 30 people to manufacture 10 billion tablets and capsules, right? So it's no longer you are talking about manufacturing, but you have to now look at knowledge area, right? So in India, young population is going to deliver huge amount of support to the world in terms of coming up with new drug discovery. And that is where multinational companies, when I said multinational, even Indian companies are also multinational. They are also investing in India in the area of back-end part of the R&D. Mathematical analytics is becoming a big part of drug discovery. So I keep seeing a lot of companies investing in this part of the this end of what do you call drug discovery or pharmaceutical. Not necessarily it has to be complex generics and those kind of stuff. That's a very it's a passe, right? Future is all about AI, simple way of making it happen, knowledge based stuff. So that's where I think India is going to score big time. As you just read the news about how in NASA, many of our scientists are landing helicopter on the Mars, right? Those people studied in southern part of India, and now they went and they're landing helicopter on the moon. So why would Indians won't do that in drug discovery, right? So it's going to happen in a very, very different way. I'm very upbeat about what multinational companies can get out of India.
Sudarshan, now I think we have this IP issue with multinational companies behind us, hopefully. And look at now the opportunity working with multinationals together in areas, where I think the opportunity is more than if we can, fight for the small domestic market. Are the Indian companies, big Indian companies to whom you represent, are ready to do so?
This is going to be the decade for India. This is Y2K moment for India, and KG and me are part of one of the R&D committee. So it is very, very clear that India is the 14th largest in terms of value, third largest in volume. We control, say, $40 billion market. We have got aspiration to go to 120 billion. That can be only realized if we move up the value chain. I see a lot of collaboration happening. It has been in the manufacturing space at this particular moment. AstraZeneca and Serum, Johnson & Johnson with biological events. There is a lot of collaboration happening in marketing of the product. There are a lot of collaboration which are happening in clinical trials and CMO space. I will see, because I am also the part of private equity world, where you involve a lot of collaboration in the development space. You will see a lot happening in India, and this is the time, and we can be all proud of the fact that Indian companies will play a very important role, and the distinction between Indian and multinational will start getting blurred. It is the patient who will make the difference, and whatever we can make for Indian patient, that will be the critical thing going forward.
So, I think that's a very, very good to hear from you, Sudarshan. I'm very happy after so much of effort we put behind to bring the Indians and multinational company at last. We are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But, Anand, I would like to credit you for having the most pragmatic pricing policy for India. Perhaps Merck was the first one to have a policy which was more local policy than other multinationals. Of course, Glaxo always did that, but you were the one really who brought it. But if I look at some of the products which are being sold, particularly in the area of oncology or in the area of pain and arthritis, the prices are tremendous. One a treatment cost goes to 10 lakh rupees, and I was shocked when I was told this price. And believe me, this is something which is a big concern. And how do you think going forward, multinationals are going to have a very pragmatic pricing for the patients in this country?
It's a good question, Keval, but before I get into this, I'd like to share something on
Anand, just 1 minute. Anybody has any questions, you can put on the chat and or raise your hand, because I'm running short of my questions, so I would like to use yours to ask this panel. So please don't hesitate to do so. Yeah.
So before I address this question on pricing, let me just add some of the thoughts on R&D. And I think Sudarshan also said very well, a lot of collaboration is happening, which is very good. But I think from a policy perspective, there is a lot that needs to be done. Because if you look at our current, $179 billion are spent by the global pharma on research annually. We are talking of $179 billion.
Absolutely.
And it is a good opportunity for India to attract and do something over here, provided you create the right type of ecosystem and a policy environment that encourages people to come invest in India. We get a lot of benefit out of it. Number one, you get the technology, you get talent upgradation, you will have molecules coming out of India. These are things that we must try and explore, and this is one area, Keval, where certainly both the regulatory environment as well as the IP environment needs a lot of stabilization. It's a long way.
But pricing is in the hands of the multinational companies.
No, I'm coming to pricing. I've not still talked about pricing. I'm coming to
yes.
Yeah, with specific reference to the oncology drugs they talked about, Keval. If you look at, let's start again from R&D. If you look at in the space of, let's take melanoma. Out of 63 molecules that were identified for melanoma, skin cancer, only 3 have seen the light of the day. In lung cancer, out of some 73 molecules that were in the pipeline, only 10 are effective. And you believe me that for every single molecule, the average expense that is there today is around $2.6 billion. The industry has to somewhere recover, the cost that is being pumped into getting some of these, very advanced research products that are there. That is number one. Number two is that most of these products that are coming in, Keval, they are not just chemistry-based, molecules. They are biologics, they are gene therapy, they are targeted therapy, where the entire manufacturing process, the system is a very different one, where the level of investment is humongous. It's not small. And that also adds to the cost. The third part is that relatively, Keval, if unlike a mass-based therapy, where, on a volume, the cost gets a little bit apportioned, it's not the case in cancer. It's relatively a smaller volume game, and hence the cost also, goes up because of the volume part of it. But having said all this, Keval, majority of our member companies today have a differential pricing for cancer products in India, and many of them actually a fraction of what is the global pricing. On top of it, many of our organizations also provide patient assistance program, etc., because one puts the patient at the center and do whatever is possible to benefit this particular patient. Because we must realize, Keval, what has happened in all this, I just took example, whether it is melanoma, whether it is lung cancer, in the case of brain cancer, only 3 drugs out of 73 and odd. So, but what has happened is that the prognosis has improved, the survival rate has improved, and the economic benefit far outweighs actually the type of treatment cost that is over there. And hence, what we need to really look at is the value of medicine rather than just the price of the medicine. What does it bring to the patient? At the same time, I totally agree with you. We have to keep in mind what all can be done to make it as much affordable as possible to the patient. And I think here it's not just only the private sector, but it is important the government, the insurance players, everyone comes together. And that is when I think it will become far more affordable to the patients, particularly with reference to cancer.
Very good. Thanks, Anand. And Sudarshan, there was a time during our period when we heard that Indian companies can bring a new product, an IP product, in the range of $200 to $300 billion. I haven't seen the light of any such product yet. The question to you is, it's going to be a deep pocket in terms of research. How are you going to engage, in globally, for example, at the discovery stage? The funding takes place from outside. It's mostly the government agencies do the funding. And later on, when the proof of concept comes in, that's where the risk is the highest. There is some sharing of expenses also taking place. Indian companies, now multinationals are going to focus on what is relevant to them in terms of disease patterns. And we need to focus on what is relevant to us in terms of disease patterns. And also to the unregulated markets, because they will have a similar profile like us. So there is an export market for that also. How do you think this, to get the next Viagra from an Indian company, when do you think that is going to happen? And how we need to work on this?
Great question, Keval. This is the key topic which all of us are focusing our attention on. Like say, no country in the world, I'm very proud of that. We have got great advantage of technology and healthcare, and we bring together healthcare and technology and young population. They are phenomenal advantage. We are not able to leverage it. A great example is you are aware that Zydus is working on DNA vaccine, which is a very unique concept which they are working on. MCure, Genova, they are working on mRNA vaccine. Even in the vaccine, this moment, COVID moment, is a great moment which has catalyzed the changing world. And in fact, we will be coming with the R&D policy, say, in next 30 to 45 days, and 4 areas which we are focusing in India. One is the regulatory system in this country, which has to be simplified. Second is the funding mechanism. We don't have the concept of risk capital in this country. Yes, government has given $300 million now to Serum Institute, but we will see a lot of examples of that kind. Third is industry academic collaboration, which is very, very important going forward. And last is the policy thrust. Which are the areas we need to focus? The way we see it, the Indian industry will move up from 40. We have come out with a vision report, $40 billion to $130 billion. We are 13th at the moment in the world in terms of value. We will be among top 5 markets in terms of value. And you will see 3 to 4 new drugs coming from India. There is a lot, maybe you may be reading in the newspaper, but there will be a lot of collaboration taking place. And we will see many outcomes coming in. But the beginning part of is the research work. Dr. Hila, all of us know about it. He has done work to develop the vaccine. Yes, you will see Pankaj Patel coming with some product, and there are new drugs which will be emerging from India. So it is a great time for us.
So absolutely, you're right. And I think biotech need to be complemented because that is a purely Indian research with ICMR. And Zydus Cadila also is almost doing the same thing. And, but their domain knowledge in vaccine was of Indian company is very high. They almost 60% of the vaccine globally has been supplied by the Indian company. And I think they leveraged on this and this type of products that we are getting is fantastic. And really, you're absolutely right. But when we have more than, let's say, 3,000 drug companies, more than 10,000 manufacturing units in India. We have seen a lot of consolidation happening in India between Indian companies. We have also seen a lot of interest by the private equities on taking Indian companies. How do you see multinationals actually coming in a big way now in taking the Indian companies?
Keval, one thing in perspective, at the end of the day, Indian pharma industry has developed a lot of skill, okay, in terms of manufacturing, is a API, whether intermediaries, whether it's critical component. I think we have got a very good ecosystem that developed to make sure that we supply to formulation for exports, right? It's a vibrant industry. And you'll be surprised to see quite a lot of multinational companies are only buying APIs and various, like for example, I know very well GSK used to buy their paracetamol, one of the company in India for quite some time. And similarly, many multinational. So if you are saying that multinationals have to invest, no, not necessarily. They're already encouraging. Almost every multinational is, like I remember J&J is buying their entire HIV, some of their base products are from India. And similarly, many other multinational companies are anyway encouraging. That one part of the multinational companies do believe that India has got their endeavor to provide drugs to the Western markets or regulated markets. As far as the private equities are concerned, private equities, they look at an opportunity and they find out how to improve the efficiency of operation because they become hard-nosed. I think that's a very big move that's happening, where various private equity companies are looking at these platforms, which has a global impact. And there is an opportunity to invest, take it to the next level of improving efficiency, getting some leverages and all those stuff. So I'm seeing a big opportunity, not necessarily in formulation, materials, API, intermediaries. There's a lot of action that's happening, and big investors are interested in, because India has established ability to provide a good quality ingredient for the final formulation. So not necessarily multinational companies have to invest through this.
My question was more relevant, Vajesh, and now maybe Anand can respond to it. If we look at the China opportunity, I would call it, it's not investing in China, but getting the companies out of China and investing in other countries. Vietnam was the first one to really latch on to that. And I've been speaking to some of the companies who have invested in China, and they said, we want a very reliable and consistent supply. As simple as that. And we are ready to invest on a second source, whether it is in India or it is in Vietnam. Now, this was a great opportunity, let us say, for a whole lot of us here to actually invest in India, whether it is in API, mostly in the API segment, or the KSMs, key starting materials. What has been the thinking of the multinational company? Why we have not seen such a huge investment shifted from China to India?
See, Keval, I think most of the multinationals are probably evaluating how to de-risk their supply chains. And it is not that they have all suddenly gone and established themselves in other countries. In fact, even now, I think several of them are under active consultation as to which geography they should try and make themselves, risk-proof rather, for whether it should be Eastern Europe, whether it should be in US itself, or whether it should be in India or Vietnam or Indonesia. I think a lot of evaluation is happening on how do you de-risk the supply chain. That is for sure. Now, I think here again, it is important that we have a policy landscape which will attract, these investments to come to India. And that is where I think a lot of work has happened.
Don't you think the PLI scheme, which is announced by the government, particularly to attract, is it not that very attractive for companies to really come and invest?
See, Keval, if you look at from a multinational point of view, multinational point of view, they are not really looking at a PLI scheme to come and establish their footprint in India. On the contrary, they are looking at a good regulatory environment, a stable, predictable, consistent.
So, Sudarshan, PLI is only for the domestic companies?
No. It is for everyone.
It's everyone. So my friend says that no, MNCs are not looking at it. How the Indian companies are looking at PLI?
So should I answer that?
Huh? How is the
Should I
Indian
answer that?
companies? Yes.
So basically, Keval, just to add what KG is saying, and I've been part of both multinational. I happen to be at IPA now.
Yes.
Like say Abbott, I will give the example. The greatest thing has been policy stability. All of you remember we wanted to set up stent plant in India. All of a sudden, you announced a stent price reduction, right? Now, so one of the things which is the biggest thing, and KG and me keep on talking, policy stability, pricing environment, and regulatory environment is fundamental to attract investment in this country. We are attracting investment from Apple has decided to invest in this country. Why not pharma sector? And all of us who have worked in both the sector have got a great role to play. Keval, you have got a great role to play. Your voice carries a lot of credibility. So let's be champions of India. We have got great talent in this country, like the Unilever, the kind of work Unilever has done. And if you have to take slightly longer period of time to get dividend in this country. Levers has been there for years together. Levers is getting the dividend, making a role in this country. Even in the pharma sector, some of the companies who have taken the lead, they will certainly get the dividend. It is a great place. There is a healthcare environment, market, talent, everything. And if regulatory environment becomes better, pricing environment becomes better, it is the place.
I totally agree with it. There has to be consistency policy. Anand has been saying that. There has to be consistency policy on pricing, and the government needs to be supportive of this investment in terms of involvement.
Absolutely.
How do we actually make this happen? What do we need to do to make that happen, Vaidesh? What do we need to do to make it happen?
No, but
both is fair. I'm so happy today. For the first time, you see me blushing because here there are two giants today coming together and asking the government, look, it's a great opportunity. Please make it happen.
Keval, I think it's very unfair to say that we have not progressed. Okay, when I look back 10 years and where we are today, we've come a long way. So from a point of view of policy making, I remember having gone through in China the way in which the clinical research that went through the roof. As compared to India, we got a lot of talent and we could do a lot of clinical research work, right? I think there's a lot of realization that is happening in the government. They are getting exposed to new knowledge and all the stuff. I think, frankly, we are at the right time. There's so much openness is there. Was it there? Was it not there in the past? I guess people have different priorities, right? Today, if you ask me, I think we are at the right time. Industry like Sudarshan, people like Sudarshan and KG sitting there. I must tell you, Keval, I think these two people are making a huge difference or driving change.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I don't see during the COVID time, I saw change happening. So just give some time. Give some time. I think there's a lot happening in our country, which is very different from what we have seen in the past. So kudos to the industry and also to our policy makers of openness, listening, and this.
Fair enough. I think but I think there needs to be more effort, as both of them really pointed out to the same thing, as how we can make that happen. Now, studying a little bit more of what type of leadership competence which would be required for the future, which is quite different from today. And at what levels these types of leadership competencies we require? Maybe Anand can take first, and then maybe Sudarshan and make then I can, Vaidesh can respond. What are type of differential competency we are looking in the leadership? You were all CEOs and you managed the company. Do you think we have any chance to manage the future of pharma companies, or you will require different types of skills to manage that?
I think, Keval, we have a good and strong leadership within the pharmaceutical sector. But certainly there is always a scope for learning and developing and improving, which is, always given. See, the future leaders, must have, in my view, a lot more strategic thinking part, rather than, execution is also very important, but I place a lot of importance on strategic thinking. Where are you going to be, 5 years from today? What type of policies must be there? How do you maneuver this situation? That's extremely important. But one more that has come up a lot during the last 1.5 year is cable. Leaders having empathy are going to survive. Because, the most important to manage teams, to continue to build the organization, if the leaders score on empathy is not adequate, I don't think the talent will stick to the organization, because at the end of the day, the make or break of an organization is talent. And it is here that this empathy is going to play a lot more role, probably into the future than what was in the past. As they used to say, that if you were to put a grid, that, if you have task orientation on one axis and people orientation on the other axis, I think slowly but surely, though the best is to be on the top, both in task and people orientation, but in the current context, people orientation is taking a little more, time and essence, which is going to be very, very important. And last but not the least is, a mindset to collaborate, Keval. Collaborate not within the organization, collaborate outside the organization, collaborate, within the ecosystem very well. These are a couple of things that are going to really take the future leaders to great heights, in my view.
So, Sudarshan, tomorrow is going to be
going on, and I'm really sorry for the interruption, but we're running a little short of time. So
yeah, we'll wind up 2 minutes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, sir. It's a wonderful session, and I'm so sorry
can
to
I
interrupt.
Zinat, give me just 2 minutes to wind up, please, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, Sudarshan, now let's Anand talk about empathy and other things. How will really the skills for the future go in terms of, I can understand people orientation, there are dilemmas going to be future, so how do you manage these dilemmas are going to be very critical. But in terms of digitization and artificial intelligence and looking at the automation as such, what type of skills that you think the future leaders should be having?
So maybe very, very short, given the time, I will just quote Satya Nadella in his book. Growth learning mindset will be fundamental instead of fixed mindset. What worked yesterday will not work today. You have to learn digital skills. You have to learn global collaboration skill. You have to be empathetic. So growth mindset, learning every day is fundamental. That will be the critical quality. And Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, they are demonstrating it in the global world. I will stop here.
Very good. So one quick one word answer each will. Anand, which is the next Indian company would be really global multinational company?
I think it's difficult to pick one of them, Keval. There could be several who could come up the way that the Indian pharma industry is progressing, and we wish them the very best.
Sudarshan, which one do you think you can bet on?
I will not comment on this. I'm privy to the part. So thank you very much, Keval, for this.
But do you think we will see many such?
Yeah, we will see many, and I think it is a Y2K moment for India. So we will see.
Absolutely, very good.
It is.
Where do you see the future for the Indian companies?
No, Indian companies definitely is going to rock the world, because I can clearly see they're up there, up in the value chain. It's a matter of another about 10, 15 years. The only caution, not caution, I'm just saying, only thing that I think that we need to do well in the area of biologics, where as industry, we need to put more investment, time, energy, R&D behind it, because that's going to be the future, genetics and predictive health sciences. But right now, I think we are in a great shape. I think as Y2K kind of stuff that we talked about, I think we're in a great shape.
Very good. I think you're absolutely right. I'm working with a genetic company, and it's so difficult to convince people that this is the future of the business in pharmaceuticals. And thanks a lot, Sudarshan, Vaidesh, and Anand. This has been a great interaction. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. And over to you, Zinat.
Thank you, Mr. Handra. That was one question. I wish we could go more on that. But now, ladies and gentlemen, It's time for our lunch break, and we will be back at 1:55. We'll start the sessions at 2 p.m. sharp. So, ladies and gentlemen, looking forward to meet you at 2 p.m.
Thank you to everyone. Thank you.